Utopia is the newest album by Travis Scott, his fourth studio album following the release of Astroworld in 2018, 5 years ago now. There are a number of things that people could point to explain why this drought in releases happens or justify it in some way. I think one, though, that a lot of us are aware of and would agree on being part of that case was the tragedy that occurred in November 2021 with the Astroworld Festival. We all know what happens. We all know what the aftermath of it was. Look, I don't really want to put my 2 cents on that subject just because I don't want there to be much negativity with this video or with any possible comments that people leave under this video. But I'll just say that that is probably a good reason to go with as to why this album didn't come out sooner. We probably would have gotten it sooner if it weren't for that. I think most people can agree with that. And if I'm not mistaken, Travis Scott was actually starting his rollout for the album for what was supposed to be Utopia at that same time. That same day, he had come out with a couple of singles. Pretty crazy how that all happened, took place around the same time. But putting that aside, nearly 2 years later, we have Utopia. It's actually out now. I haven't talked about any of Travis's solo work on this channel ever before, so I'll use this part of the video as an opportunity to say that I like Travis a lot. I'm quite a big fan of him. He doesn't really come to mind to me when I think about my favorite artists currently or my favorite rappers right now. I don't know why, though, because anytime I do listen to his music, a good amount of the time, I'm just very impressed. I enjoy a lot of his stuff. I genuinely believe he has mastered the art of auto-tune and the use of it and the way he operates with it, with his voice. There's just something about it, man. I think he does it better than a lot of artists do nowadays, not just in the rap world. So, of course, I was looking forward to this album and was a little annoyed with how it kept getting pushed back. I remember hearing it was supposed to come out in June. But then, it's probably going to be July, maybe July 21st. Oh no, now they're saying July 28th. But finally we did get it on that day. A week before, we had the single K-Pop, which also involved The Weeknd and Bad Bunny. And this was kind of a weird song for me. I wasn't too into it. I liked the features okay. Bad Bunny, The Weeknd, they were fine. They did a fine job on here. The beat was alright. I did kind of like the woodwind led part of it, but overall it was just kind of a mediocre lead single in my opinion. And having heard the album, I definitely think they could have picked much more better options to have as that lead single, as I still don't get much out of this song, to be honest. However, I did really enjoy that line, "South of France, we gon' party, this ain't some Lil Yachty." That was a pretty good line there. I thought that was very clever. Shout out to The Weeknd for that. So then a week later, we actually did get the album Utopia, and I have been trying to avoid what people have thought of this album, as I normally do with, especially with something that I think I'm going to try and review. I like to stay away from what people think, but of course, I am a person living today, breathing, so of course I'm going to go on the internet every day. We all do. So I just accidentally come across some things every now and then. I've heard lots of comparisons to other big albums from other big artists, such as Yeezus by Kanye West, Donda by Kanye West, Renaissance by Beyonce. Personally, I picked up on a lot of similarities to Damn by Kendrick Lamar. A little bit of Drake nods too, honestly, never mind. Maybe Certified Lover Boy as well. Yeah, there are a bunch of things you could compare this to, and I have heard a lot of people saying that. But I just gotta say, I don't totally understand why it's being so emphasized with this project, especially because everything sounds like everything. To create something that is truly unique and truly original is really hard, and in this day and age, almost impossible in a lot of ways. Really, you could dig up so many things that even just a little note sounds reminiscent of a chord change in this song or a guitar lick at the bridge of this underground single released by this indie band, just different things like that. It is so hard to make anything new and original and innovative. So, you know, I'm kind of tired of that complaints and that nitpick that a lot of people have. I don't think it's totally justified. So yeah, these similarities are there for sure, but where they're not so much there, in my opinion, is with the opening track, HYAENA. Like that segue there. This opening track definitely threw me off a little bit upon my first listen, which is funny because I listened to this thing right when it drops, so I hadn't heard anything about it, hadn't read anything about it because it just came out. And so I shouldn't have had expectations about what it would sound like, but I did, and then was just kind of thrown off when it didn't sound like what I was expecting, even though I shouldn't have had expectations. It's weird how that happens sometimes. This is definitely one of the more hip-hop sounding songs on here for sure, especially with the drum sample here, which I think is cool because Travis Scott is a hip-hop artist, but he's also very well known for blending different tinges and flares within the hip-hop genre, such as psychedelia, pop, maybe some rock samples here and there. But I really like the beat here. I'm liking how Travis is flowing over it. I really like that line, "I'm driving through hell and I done brought snow," kind of reflecting on the hard period of time he's going through, a rough period of time, but trying to stay cool and calm throughout it. I'm really loving the instrumental build we get on the next track, Thank God, featuring K-Sai. It makes an especially good transition into the third verse where we have this string-led trap beat that I thought sounded great. And then the third track, Modern Jam, featuring TELEKINESIS Touchdown, is probably one of my favorite songs on here, actually. It's one that actually fares away from the influence of modern albums and modern artists and feels very 1980s to me, especially looking on the 1980s electronic scene. I thought this sounded like something, honestly, that Prince would have cooked up back in the day. There are even parts of this song, like when Travis is like, "Right, right," like however he delivers that line, it kind of felt very Prince-like to me. The vocal performance throughout this song is really varying from both of these artists. You have the opening portion with Travis yelling, I guess, kind of yelling in a way, kind of reminded me of Rick James, also going back to the 80s influence. And then you have TELEKINESIS Touchdown coming through, basically doing his best David Byrne impersonation, which was cool. I'm also aware that this was one of the original I Am a God instrumentals, which is a Kanye song, if you don't know. So there goes more of those Kanye comparisons. I think My Eyes is a very pretty song with a very pretty first half, especially. It's very soft, kind of dreamy. Felt kind of like a dream pop-esque genre they were trying to encompass here. I'm liking the vocal delivery from Travis again, and also Bon Iver and Sampa have nice contributions here as well. And then the second half kind of takes on more of a trap instrumental that I thought was pretty fitting. The lyrics here seem to be kind of on the theme of regret, and Travis seems to be telling us about these things that he's feeling regretful about through his point of view, or you could say it through his eyes, which is fitting considering the song's called My Eyes. I'm unfortunately not too into the next track, God's Country, though. I especially just don't care for the vocal sampling here, the la 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 la. It's honestly grating to me. I don't know if it was supposed to be annoying, but it is. I just really can't stand it. And the rest of the beat, I'm really not that impressed by either. I think it could have been better put together. I do really like that line, though. I make a meal every... You decide. Choice is yours. He's right. I mean, he's right. We determine who is popular and who isn't by, you know, whose music we stream or purchase, you know, for the few people that still do that. I'm one of those people, by the way. Sirens is another cool track that I like on here. I like the kind of different drum beat here. It does feel Yeezus-esque. Going back to the Kanye comparisons, yeah, this does kind of sound like a, I don't know, black skinhead-like drum beat. But we have none other than John Mayer himself actually guesting on this song. Guesting? Is that the right way to say it? He's a guest feature, I guess. Plays a guitar here. And it sounds very nice. I'm enjoying his work on here. But then we have the big one. The one that a lot of people are going to be talking about. Since I most recently checked, I think it was actually the most streamed song on the album, other than K-pop, of course. That's Meltdown, featuring Drake. And this song was awesome. It was, you know, pretty much just as good as I hoped it would be. I really do like Drake's feature quite a bit here. I like what he does with his voice, kind of whispering at times. Really cool delivery overall. And we have some good beat switches here too, which sure is predictable, but you know, it's a formula that has worked with these guys. You know, it kind of reminds me of what Drake and 21 Savage have also done on Her Loss or with Jimmy Cooks. It works, what can I say? Some other standout parts of this track though, that line "and they scared the 7," I thought that was pretty clever. Obviously playing off of the 6, which Drake references. And I know what that is, by the way, before anyone says that I don't. And I thought I heard an AT-AT effect at one point. The things from Star Wars, from this thing here, I'm pretty sure I actually heard that sound effect at one point. This dude right here, I'll try to crop and zoom in when I'm editing. It kind of sounded like that. Then we have the next track, Fiend, featuring Playboy Cardi and Sheck West. I'm liking the arcade-esque synths on this one. Those kinds of beats I'm typically appeal to and I've liked in the past. I think it works well here too. And I'm still just so shocked that this is actually Playboy Cardi in this song. When I heard the ad-libs, I knew that was him. I could tell that was him. It's pretty obvious, you know, what he does, the ad-libs he has on his songs. But he just sounds so different here. His voice is so much deeper than it normally is. And it just has me wondering if he's going to continue to, you know, sound like this in future works of his, if he actually does come up with that album soon that he's supposed to, maybe, with this tour coming up soon as well. You know, who knows? That's going to be interesting if he does sound like that on that album. Overall, though, it was an okay song, actually. I wasn't that into it, to be honest. Del Resto is the next song on here, and unfortunately, this one was a bit of a letdown for me. We have features from Bon Iver and Beyonce, and they're pretty good on this track, but I did find the instrumental to be pretty repetitive and kind of boring after a while. It really does just kind of sound like a Renaissance demo, to be honest. Not too impressed with it. But luckily, this leads into one of my favorite songs on here, I Know. It has a question mark on it, that's why I said it that way. I freaking love the creepy piano sample on here. It reminds me of those toys that you have to like crank and then the toy pops out of the box. Kind of reminds me of that. And basically Travis here, this track is telling the tale of drugs and alcohol kind of influencing his decisions late at night, super early in the morning. And it's a pretty interesting song lyrically, actually. He's like kind of telling the story of how these things can just make him, you know, do things he probably wouldn't do if he was sober. Utopia Twins featuring Rob 49 and 21 Savage is a somewhat generic track, but an enjoyable one with a pretty smooth instrumental. Good features from Rob and 21, like lots of raunchy bars on this one too. I got a good amount of enjoyment out of it. Maybe just a little bit too long though. You could have cut the runtime just slightly. Circus Maximus, I don't get too much out of though. I do like The Weeknd a lot on this song. His voice sounds great on here. Sway Lee's alright. Here we go again. It's just kind of another Yeezus copycat. Kind of like a mid-Yeezus, adjacent, I guess, mid-sis. Would that be what it's called? Mid-sis? It's kind of a mid-sis song. This is followed by the track PARASAIL, which is basically an interlude. Kind of a short little break on the album, but a very pretty one, I might add. I do like the guitar part in this one quite a bit. Young Lean's feature is spaced out in the song, dispersed throughout the track, but I do like his part here. I like Dave Chappelle's spoken word parts, and the audio quality is kind of low, but it reminds me of like old home videos you would watch. I kind of got that feeling listening to this track. Kind of has a similar aesthetic to it, but obviously in the audio form. Following this is SKITZO featuring Young Thug, whose feature on here I'm enjoying quite a bit. I like how he kind of piggybacks off of Travis's flow and melody that he had in his verse, and he kind of just picks it up with his feature. I like when artists do that in general. And there are some more beat changes in this one that I also think work really well, and a couple of very good and standout bars in my opinion. Seeing the top 10 pin list, I don't even know how they could pin this, knowing that I'm the human Pinterest. And then, look, you may disagree with him, however you feel about it. I'm loyal, bitch. I got Ye over Biden. It's a funny line. Whether you like it or not, I think it's a pretty funny line. Lost Forever has one of the most unexpected but welcome features on the album, I would say, with West Side Gun. I am enjoying this song. I'm enjoying the implementation of the chipmunk soul, chipmunk sample on here, as people call it. I think it works well. And I like West Side Gun's feature and kind of the darkness that is in the second half of the song and in the second half of the instrumental. I think it provides fitting end to the track. I also really like this one particular string of lines on the song from Travis. He says, "I'm just one chain away from going heavy metal. I'm just one angel away from blocking out the devil. Just one mountain away from meeting all my rebels." So pretty good penning there, I would say. The next track, Love, however you would say that, is pretty underwhelming in my opinion. Kid Cudi's featured on the track, and he says some words, and Travis says some words, and then the song ends, and yeah. It's a listenable track. I just don't think there's a lot of substance to it. Skipping ahead though, because I already talked about K-pop, Telekinesis is probably one of the standouts on the album for me. We have features from Future and SKITZO, and this one is definitely giving Donda vibes for me, for sure. Especially with how we'll get these random, out of nowhere synth and bass hits at certain parts of the song. Kind of remind me of Come to Life and some of those other songs in the back end of Donda. But I am liking Future and Travis on this song. They encompass, like, I don't know, I want to say like the first 2/3 of the song or so, and then SZA sounds awesome when she comes in. The build up to, you know, her arrival in this track, and then she just sounds great. Her singing sounds wonderful. Really loving her part on this song. I gotta say though, the Luke line definitely made me cringe quite a bit. And him saying Luke, and then going to the next line, I don't know why he did that. It made me think of Luka Doncic, because he said Luka, but he's actually talking about Luke from Star Wars. Weird line, kind of a cringy bar, actually, I would say. But then things end really great. Not that they weren't great with Telekinesis, but a great closer, in my opinion, with Till Further Notice, featuring 21 Savage and James Blake. I'm liking the somewhat double entendre of the lyrics here, you know, talking about where would you go, what would you do now, kind of almost talking to the audience, like, now that this album's over, what are you gonna do? But then also, what is Travis gonna do now from this point on? And, you know, also kind of going into the concept of the album of Utopia, you know, a world, a place, you know, different interpretations you could take from that. And James Blake delivers a lot of these hooks on here. I think sounds great. I'm liking the voice manipulation on him too. I think that was awesome. A pretty dark song too, which I also just really like. You know, different moments on here. It felt like Travis was kind of experimenting with horrorcore, which I'm really down for. I think that's a really good subgenre of hip hop, and I'd like to see more rappers nowadays try to explore that. And that is Utopia. Utopia. I'm kind of sitting low, sit higher up here. That's Utopia. Finally out, finally listen to it. It is a heavy lift for sure. It is a lot of songs. It's pretty long runtime, but a pretty enjoyable time too. You know, even with the different types of sounds he tried to experiment with, you know, like I said, seemingly some more horrorcore elements, some dance influence, electronic, and then of course trap, psychedelia, some pop rap here and there. You could say the album kind of has an identity crisis in a way and doesn't know which style and aesthetic to stick with. And at times, sure, it was a little annoying for me personally, kind of wanting it to go back to settle into specific styles. And so in particular, I just didn't get a lot out of the dance stuff on here. Did like Modern Jam quite a bit though. That was a good jam, I might say. Yeah, man, he's just trying a lot of different things on here, and I think it's mostly landing for me, actually. I was pretty happy with this thing. Overall, Utopia for me would be an 8 out of 10. Glad to see Travis back making good music, because he's good at it. Yeah. As always, let me know how you feel about this album. Things you liked, things you didn't. Favorite tracks. I have my favorite tracks in the description if you want to look at that. If you want to listen to the album on YouTube, I'll put a link as well for it on YouTube. We all have YouTube, so I think that's the fairest service to provide the album, link to the album for. Not everyone has Spotify or Apple Music, so, you know, think it's a good compromise there. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later. Peace out.